Welcome to the Ages of Rock podcast with your hosts Bill Algie, Dennis Talbot, and Alan Tate. We are three guys who have one thing in common, a love of rock and roll. Our goal is to talk about all things rock. We hope you find this show intriguing, funny, and occasionally highly opinionated. Enjoy! Welcome to Ages of Rock podcast, episode 51. This week we're going to be talking about guitar something or another, and since Dennis is the expert on it, I'm going to let him take over.
Oh, I'm an expert? Boy, are you... I fooled you guys, didn't I?
If not, you bought a lot of gear back there that so
you know,
he's
fishermen have a lot of
overcompensating for
equipment.
something.
They don't fish very
for
good.
those of you that are listening to it, he's got a Marshall back there and a 5150 head and
And Eddie Van Halen.
And a Mesa Boogie and
yeah, so I don't know, whatever. He's got a few
A
things.
massive booger. What?
a massive booger. It's a triple massive booger, actually.
You know how to make a boogie dance, right? A booger dance.
Yeah.
Oh, I messed that up.
All right, we're gonna get to the subject. All right. Anyway, what we're gonna do this week is we thought about it. Thought it'd be a interesting deal. Would be talk about not iconic guitarists themselves, but the trademark guitars that they play. You know, they each have one that they are known for. Not everyone does, but most of the guitar players have a guitar that you associate with. So, did I say that right? That they're associated with. Anyway, so that's what we're going to talk about. That's right. So we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. But as usual, we're going to bring up some old crap and some new crap and just stuff that's happened since the last show. So, Bill, you got something to talk about there, bro?
Well, yeah, last show we talked about the 27 Club. If you remember, Dennis brought that up whenever we were talking about, oh, that was you? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
That was one of the ties, wasn't it?
Yeah, we both thought about it, but
Both of you guys came up with that.
Right.
So, those are people that have passed that, what if they wouldn't have passed kind of thing. So, Amy Winehouse came up in that thing. And I remember back when she came out, I wasn't really into her much, didn't care for her music too much. But then I've been watching this PBS special called Sound Breaking, which is about recording studios and stuff like that. It's really, really cool. It's on at 10 o'clock Eastern time on PBS Monday through Friday. So I think it's got a couple of weeks left or another week left, I think. But they did a thing about recording voices on Thursday night. And it was really cool. And they were talking about how some of the different voices, how the right studio pulls out the voice in a different way, being in the right environment.
Right.
And they really spent a lot of time talking about Amy Winehouse. So I downloaded a couple of Amy Winehouse's LP, CDs, whatever, music. And actually it's pretty cool. It's not something I listen to every day, but it's definitely different.
She
was kind of like a young person and a great voice. I mean, I didn't realize it. I just didn't realize it. Some of it is not stuff, like I said, it's not stuff I listen to, but some of it is really, really good. Valerie, which is a remake, was a really, really good song. And some of the other stuff I find myself it's kind of cool. Now, we listened to it this morning a little bit, and Lisa's not such a big fan. She's like, it's okay, but right. I don't really care for it a lot, but I just think I didn't realize how strong and unique. I think it's the uniqueness of her voice. It's really unique, and it's just a shame that she got kind of pulled into the drugs and bad stuff that went on and things like that. So, because otherwise, I think she would have had a phenomenal career, but it just didn't work out for her.
I probably need to pull
old soulful voice.
She did. It was very in the old remake stuff that she was doing. It's really, I mean, she's done some really good stuff with it and very unique twists, and it's really it was pretty cool. So if you get a chance, if you haven't listened to any of her stuff, or you can download it on Amazon or iTunes or whatever, and it's worth a listen, that's for sure.
I'll probably pull it up on Spotify, because the problem is I have is my first listen to her was that Rehab song, which I hated that song. It was just one of those things and as soon as I hear something like that, the first thing I hear from somebody, I kind of just associate that. It's like, Amy, yeah, it's that Rehab song. So I need to probably go back and listen to other tunes that she did. And because I know that she did get a lot of acclaim for her voice. And like you said, that was one thing that was mentioned quite a bit. The old soul. She had that for a young person. She had an old soul. And
And she could do some very unique runs and stuff like
cool.
that with
You
the
have to check
voice.
that out.
It was pretty cool. Yeah, you got to check it out.
Awesome.
So that was my carryover from last week.
Cool.
Was it's kind of neat. Kind of got into it.
Alan, you got
All
anything?
right. Yeah, that was it for me.
Well, last night I did sound for a fellow by the name of Jason Lee McKinney. He's a touring musician. The name of his band is Jason Lee McKinney Band, and he's been around for a little while. He's got a couple albums out. If you get a chance to check him out, look for Jason Lee McKinney Band. I don't know if he's on Spotify or not, but it's a 5-piece band, and 3 of the 5 members share singing duties, and those fellas are top-notch musicians, and they harmonize really, really well, especially when they've got a good sound guy.
What genre are they? Is it country? I'm taking it by
it's kind of
middle
a
name.
country southern rock feel. They throw some covers in. Of course, when you're playing in smaller venues that sell alcohol, they kind of expect to hear some covers. But they covered everything from the Smithereens to the Doobie Brothers. There's all kinds of different stuff. They were really good. Oh, and he does a killer rendition of Purple Rain.
So are they like one of those tight country kind of deals, or are they
Say that
just
again?
not? I mean, kind of tight pants country. You know what I'm talking about?
No.
I was gonna say just by the name, and I was like, oh shoot, it's probably one of those guys. But you say they're traveling, man. Where are they out of? Are they out of Nashville, or are they?
Well, Jason is from Evansville, and
really?
The keyboard player Barry he lives in Newburgh right now, but
Okay.
I don't know if he's from Evansville or Newburgh. But the rest of the members of the band, including Jason, all live in Nashville now.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. Huh.
But they come to Evansville, once every 3 or 4 months, and just come home to play, and because they do have a bit of a fan base around here.
Cool. Well, next time they're in town, get a hold of me, and I'll come check them out with you. Then it'd be awesome.
Sounds good. You going to see anything, Bill?
We've got Steel Panther coming up, I think, on December 2nd. That's that's the next thing I have going on. And then after that, we'll probably try to hit a country show or something.
Awesome.
I mean, not country, Christmas. Christmas show. I don't know what we're going to do yet, but
I've actually got tickets for not Straight No Chaser.
You went to see them last year, didn't you?
I've seen this will be or maybe my 3rd time to see them. I've seen them twice before. They come to Evansville every year, usually mid-December. One of the guys is from Newburgh, or is Evansville or Newburgh? I can't remember which one it is. One of the members. They're all from went to Bloomington. That's where they began.
Yeah.
They put on a really good show. They do a lot of modern tunes. They did Creep last year, and it was really a cappella, and they kind of changed it up, and it was really cool. And it's a Christmas show, but not really a Christmas show.
Now, when you say Creep, are you talking Radiohead Creep or Stone Temple Pilots Creep?
No, Radiohead Creep, and it was really neat. This year, like I said, that's going to be about a week and a half after my surgery, so I might be giving my ticket up to my wife. Might be taking my mother-in-law or one of her friends from work, but we did get tickets for all 3 of us. So I may or may not be going. It just depends on how I'm feeling after surgery. But like I said, I've seen it before. It won't break my heart, but it is a good show to go see. And they play all around. I know they do one up at Bloomington closer to Christmas, and they're all over the place. So if you get a chance to see those guys, it's pretty cool.
Cool.
I'm trying to think. There was one other thing. Oh, last night I started watching. I did not finish it. I was kind of looking through Netflix on getting my list of must-sees while I'm on the couch for a while. I was looking through
building your watch list.
Exactly. So I was looking at, series and stuff like that. And then I was looking through their documentaries and stuff, rock docs. And I actually started watching one, and then we had ordered some food and it came. So I kind of stopped it, but there's one on there that looks really good. And I got about 20 minutes into it, but it's called The Wrecking Crew. And it's basically a documentary about the Wrecking Crew, which they were a group of musicians, studio musicians that played on just about every damn record there was in the 50s, 60s, and early 70s. And it is Tommy Tedesco. He is a studio musician. He was in Guitar Player for a long time. Had an article. I think he was a contributing editor or something. But he passed away here a few years ago, and his son, I believe, or some people in his family, made this documentary about the Wrecking Crew. So they get all these old guys together because there's a conflict about how many people were actually in the Wrecking Crew. There was some say it was 20, and then some say there was 30. But there were some of the best musicians that was in LA at the time, and even that lady that plays bass. Remember that? You ever see that where Gene's she's
the 89-year-old lady or whatever. Yeah. She tears it up.
And she's on there too. And I was just getting to the section when they were talking to her when I had to turn it off. But it's definitely one that I want to see, because if there's a movie out now with about Brian Johnson from the Beach Boys. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's got John Cusack and another guy that plays. They show him early and later in life. But they mention and talk about the Wrecking Crew in there quite a bit, because it shows basically the recording of Pet Sounds, which that's who they used, was the Wrecking Crew on that. So yeah, it's a really.
Do you mean Brian Wilson?
Or Brian Wilson? Did I say Brian Johnson? I'm sorry.
That's what I said too. I was like,
Billy's going, God dang it! Yeah, Brian Wilson. I'm sorry. Which that is a good movie too if you get a chance. It's called oh shit. I don't
think that's what it's called.
It's got an odd.
If you like that, the thing about the Wrecking Crew, look on Netflix and see if there's another one about the Swampers, because they were another band, but they were in southern Alabama or southern Mississippi.
Well, I think
a lot of people went down there to record as well. Aretha Franklin and a bunch of artists like that. So that was a really good episode.
Yeah, there's another one that's similar to that. Talks about, because there was a band, they went down there. It's the same, because a friend of mine told me about this thing a long time ago, but it is on Netflix. And it's the same deal. These guys were coming down there going, hey, I want to get up with this group of black guys that is studio musicians. It ends up it's a bunch of
white guys.
White dudes. And I can't remember the name of it, but I think that it's the same kind of, there's probably multiple documentaries on that, but I can't think of the name of that, and I'll try to remember it here or pull it up at some point. But anyway. So, anybody else got anything?
Nope. Let's get to the point.
Let's roll, man.
Before we do that, I'm going to do a little segue here. Bill's going to be going to see. You said, watch me doodle this in December 2nd.
That would be Steel Panther.
Steel Panther. I know, I was getting ready to say that. Anyway, Steel Panther. I'm going to do a little segment here in the next probably 6 shows. And kind of just show you real quick the guitars that I do use whenever I do play out, because most of my guitars, it's kind of funny, over the years I've traded and had a bunch and got rid of a bunch. The ones I have now are all basically models based on ones that people have built, artists by type guitars. And one of them that I do play, and it's one of my regular ones, it's called a Kramer Pacer. It's a vintage model. They made these back in the 80s. Originally they were, for not a better term, they were, the cock rock guitars, they called them at the time. Everybody was, playing all the fast chops. Anyway, Kramer came out and reissued this guitar, and this is the color one that Satchel originally played when Steel Panther came out, a few years ago. He now has it's kind of a purple or a bluish kind of leopard print that's based off of this guitar, but it's called now the Satchel LTD or something like that. Only difference is it has the same pickups and everything in it. Only thing that's wired different, it's got one volume knob, and that's it. It doesn't have the 2 volume knobs, and it doesn't have a tone. It's just got a switch for each one, and basically it's just full on, full off. And there's something different about the neck. But anyway, this guitar here is one I use a lot with. This is the only one that I do own that has a tremolo system on it. It's got the Floyd Rose on it. Like I said, it is filled with Seymour Duncan pickups. Got the locking. It's a great guitar. It's one of those ones that you can, take it down to where it's, and flick it back, and it's completely in tune and go all night without tuning it. Like I said, when I did buy it, I took it over to Tim Carter over at Musician's Den. He's my guy. And he went through it and set it up professionally. It did need coming from factory. It needed a hell of a setup. It was all out of whack. So I advise anybody, if you do buy a new guitar or even a used guitar, take it somewhere reputable that you do know, and have them reset it and set the intonation, get the next set, and you won't have any problems with it. So anyway, but like I said, over the next few weeks, I'll be showing each guitar that I have and play just for funsies. I thought it'd fill some time. So anyway, getting back to the subject tonight, we're talking about iconic guitar players and the guitars that they do use. And I'm gonna let you guys go first. I got a ton of information. I'm not gonna be like next week, but I did pick out some guitars that I thought you guys might not think about, and there were some that I had, after doing some research, I was going, oh yeah, I forgot about that. So anyway, you guys want to go first?
Mine was a little. I apparently did not get the grasp of the assignment.
I did not do the assignment.
Well, what I thought we were getting were guitar players that we really thought were really great guitar players, and just some information about them. I didn't realize I was supposed to get like a model number and that stuff. I have some of that information. So what I did was I did not, and I purposefully did not pick guitar players that I thought everybody would pick. So I mean, now that always goes with one of us are going to have the same guitar player because that's how it works every time, right? But I didn't pick the people that are like, I didn't pick the Randy Rhodes. I didn't pick those guys because I picked guitar players that I like.
Right.
Can I try to guess one?
I like more than the ones I'm going to talk about, but you know what I'm saying?
Can I try to guess one of yours?
Sure.
David Gilmour.
Yeah. No.
No. All right, I'm out.
We're not reading each other's minds this week, I guess.
We're not reading each other because I think a couple of mine are a little bit obscure because I like those other guys. I mean, they're all notoriety. They're all have a lot of great notoriety. So I picked some other guys that maybe not have that much notoriety. So that's what I picked. So all right. So my first guitar player that I picked was or looked at was Mark Kendall from Great White. Mark has been a great songwriter and great guitar player for that band. That band has always struck me, and I always liked them because they just have this bluesy feel. It's different. It's not that straight up, like you were talking about that, cock rock stuff. It wasn't really the hair metal stuff to me, and I think that's what kept them really from not getting huge in the 80s. But I love their albums still today. I listen to them all the time. But
Mark's
it's more of that
blues feel, though.
It's definitely a blues influence. And so when I did some research, I figured out why. His mom was a singer in a jazz band, and his dad played in a jazz band. So some of that blues and jazz stuff came from growing up. Right. So, and his influences, and he can tell it. But I can tell you a little bit that Grateful
White.
Great White started in 1982, and then they kind of split up in 2011. Was kind of the end of that, and then there was the problem with the fire, which is the very interesting thing. When I read it, I did not realize it that they had really split up by then. By the time they had the fire at the station house in Rhode Island. In Rhode Island, yeah. It was and Mark Kendall was there because the tickets were selling very slowly on the tour, and he had asked Jack Russell had asked him to kind of join the tour to kind of help boost sales a little bit. So it really wasn't a Great White show. It was a true Great White show. It was a band that Jack Russell had got together that were playing Great White stuff, but it wasn't really Mark Kendall until he played a couple of shows, and that night was one of the shows that he played. So very interesting.
In Evansville it was a week or so before that.
Oh, did they?
He was with them then.
It wasn't a lot. He didn't play a lot of shows with them, so he was trying to help him out. But he plays currently. Looks like I did a little research. He does play some called a Dishwa guitars is what he's playing. They're model. There's some. He has some signature models for those guitars, and that's what I know he's playing now. I couldn't figure out what he was playing before. I tried to figure it out, and I was unsuccessful. But so the factions of Great White. There's Jack Russell's Great White, and then there's Great White, which is Mark's Great White, and then Audie plays with him, who's the drummer, who was an original drummer with the band. So split up, and there's not a lot of love going on there, I don't think. So they've had some bad blood there. So unfortunately, that's not good for them. But anyway, that was my first pick. So it wasn't somebody that's just bloody obvious, so I went with something a little more obscure.
Right. Alan?
I seriously did not do any homework. I'm unprepared. I'm just going to sit back and enjoy you guys jaw jacking.
All right.
Throw one out. Who do you like? Throw one out there. We'll figure it out.
There's an obvious one out there, and I thought you guys would be jumping all over it, but I don't know. Anyway.
Let me ponder while Dennis talks about his.
Okay. Ponder one.
Okay. Now, like I said, I didn't follow rules, but I actually listened to what I said. What I was talking about were guitars that basically are almost bigger than the person themselves. And one of the big, I'm not getting to the big obvious one, but the first one that came to mind was Peter Frampton. He had a 3 pickup black Les Paul. They were originally called Black Beauties. He played this guitar. Actually, he was playing with Humble Pie at a gig, and at one point he was having so much trouble with his guitar, it was feeding back and all that stuff. And somebody out of the audience came up and handed him this 3 pickup guitar, and he played it the next night. And he's like, "Man, here, he was going to give it back to the guy, and he said, "I'll buy this from you." He said, "No, it's yours. You can have it." So he gave him this guitar. He played it all through, like whenever the Frampton Comes Alive, the album cover, he's playing that. Do you feel like that was that guitar? In 1980, they were on tour, and they were already at the gig or at the city where it was at. This was over, I forget where it was at, but the cargo plane was heading to Panama out of someplace in Brazil. The plane crashed after takeoff. The pilots were killed. Everything was lost. The guitar was on board. He thought it was lost forever. And in when was this? Let's see, get back to it. Anyway, it was a 1954 guitar. Here, just a few years ago, it was found. Somebody had actually dug it out of the wreckage. There was a little damage to it, but it's still playable. I mean, the finish is kind of messed up. It's got some charred on the edges, stuff like that. But he ended up getting it back. There were some people down there that knew about it, did some research, found it, and actually came back and gave it back to Frampton. And he's had it redone where he can play it again. And he's actually named it the Phoenix because it rose from the ashes. And I thought that's that's a cool story, And he said it's insured now for $2 million in case something ever happens to it again. But here's a guitar that wasn't iconic that everybody knew. When you think of Peter Frampton and your guitar player, it's that three pickup black Les Paul, and then it just disappears, and then all of a sudden it comes back. I think that's a cool story. That's the one I told you about earlier in the week that I had to do some more research on. They're very vague on some of the internet things, so I had to actually do a search to find the real story. Actually, through NPR, they had a whole interview with the guys that found it and everything. It was kind of interesting.
Yeah, they did a thing on CBS Sunday Morning about Frampton right after they found that guitar, and they showed footage of them giving him the guitar back. You see him get
cool.
You see him get choked up and everything.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
But he lives in Nashville, and that's where they, like I said, it was. That's where they gave it back to him, and so anyway, it was kind of cool. Anyway, that's what I was going for. So anyway, Alan.
Well, we got nothing after that.
You should have used that one for your closer.
Oh, I still got some good ones. But anyway,
all right, good.
Cool. But anyway. That's
cool though, because it is a very iconic. He's an iconic guitarist, and that guitar has a great story. That's cool.
Right.
I wonder. You hear about people that have lost stuff. Artists that have lost stuff over the years or had things stolen, or
right.
Stanley, did you hear that? Did you see that? I know it's a little segment. He got some platform shoes that were lost in the 70s.
Man,
those were see the colors on those things?
Ugly.
They should have stayed.
Those were some ugly shoes.
But it's kind of cool though. You know what? He's probably the only one that could actually wear them too. I mean, him and those guys that are still wearing platform shoes, which is the 4 of them or 3 of them, because otherwise nobody would be able to wear them.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Exactly. But anyway.
All right. Alan, what do you got now?
Well, I thought of Neil Schon as a pretty badass guitar player. I don't know anything about his guitars. Dennis, do you?
No, actually, Neil he's a Les Paul guy, so I'm sure it's probably Les Paul or sometime. I think he plays PRS too, Paul Reed Smith guitars, but I'm not for sure what his poison is, what his favorite one is. I didn't look into him. That's one I didn't think about.
So how do these guys get? Do you know how these guys get like signature guitars? Is it just that they
are usually
they get approached by the manufacturer? Is that how it works? Or do they approach them?
Just to give you a story on how it happened, like I say with Dave Grohl, we're gonna get in. I'll mention that, Ralph. And that's a guitar that I will be showing at some point. But he played back in the day, back in the late '60s, early '60s. I can't remember when it was exactly. There was a guy named Trini Lopez, and he played guitar. He was kind of I don't know. He was an iconic guitar player at the time. Gibson made him a kind of a star type guitar, and it was a Gibson 335. And it had diamond holes instead of having the F holes. It had like a diamond hole in it, and it had a few other modifications that he personally wanted on it. And then they call it basically the Trini Lopez model. Well, Dave Grohl loved the Trini Lopez model. He's probably recorded most of his albums with that guitar. I mean, it's an old guitar and beat up and everything else, but he loves that guitar. Well, Gibson came to him and said, "Hey, we want to do a inspired by model Dave Grohl. So what do you want to do?" And he said, "Well, I played Trini Lopez. I love the body, but I don't like the neck on it. I'd rather have a Firebird type neck on it." So they went back to, and he goes, "I wanted in Pelham blue," which was, an odd color that Gibson had years ago. So that's what they first did. And they put out he made this guitar that was basically a Trini Lopez body with a Firebird neck, and a few other adjustments. He went on the burst bucker pickups and a few other things done to it. And they made the original run on those were 400 and a little over 400. It's kind of unknown, and I even asked the guy. I went to Memphis and actually toured the plant, and I could not get an exact number out. Even the people down there said, "We really don't know." He said, "It was a little over 400." I said, "Well, how many of them were Pelham blue? How many were black?" He said, "We don't know." He says, "I could tell you that it wasn't an even number. There wasn't 200 of the blacks or 200 of the blues." Well, I bought one of those guitars, and I have one. I have number 229. And I originally, I think, gave $2,900 for that guitar. At one point on eBay, they were going for $17,000. Now they've come out with another model that is in gold and black. I think they didn't make they did make Pelham blue, and they make gold. And it's the same guitar. It's just a newer model. They were released for around $3,500 a piece. I think they're $3,900, which lowered the price of the originals. Now you can if you can find one, because there's only 400 of them in the world, and probably 200 or X amount in the world that are Pelham blue. They're going for about $7,000 to $8,000 a piece. So unfortunately, I bought a guitar now that I cannot take out and play. It stays in the house. Every place I play is a smoking venue. I can't take it out in the smoke. I've took it out maybe on 2 gigs that I knew, and only played it for a couple songs just to play it. But basically, it sits in this room, and it never leaves the house. So it's kind of a worthless guitar as far as being able to just look at it. I look at it as basically it's a savings account. We'll see what goes from there, But anyway, that's how it. But usually it is an artist is either goes to a company and likes it so much they want to try to get one made. But most of the time it is the actual company coming to the artist and proposing, "Hey, would you like to do a signature model or something like that?" And it goes both ways, I guess. So that's the answer. Right. That's the only thing I got. That's what I got. So, well, anyway, if you want to talk iconic guitars, and I'm going to tell you right now, this is the one I thought everybody would jump on, is the red guitar from Brian May. The one that he built himself, him and his dad built. That guitar there, I think, is, if you show a picture of that, I think most people would know without even who plays this guitar. They're going to say, "Oh, that's the Queen guitar. That's the guy," That guitar there, I'm curious to see what will happen down the road if something ever happens to Brian May unless it's put into a museum or something like that, if that guitar ever goes up for auction, that thing will bring. I wouldn't even guess what that guitar would bring at auction, because there is only one. I mean, there are copies that's been made of it. I mean, you could buy a copy of it. Brian's actually, I saw a thing here recently where they were going through his whole rig, showing his amps and his guitars, and they were talking mainly about that guitar. But he's had a couple people make him guitars that are very similar, but that's not the original. I mean, and when they go on tour, that guitar is under lock and key and guard at all times, because it is an iconic guitar. It's completely homemade from scratch. So that's one I figured everybody'd be jumping on. But I guess I was wrong.
Like I said, I missed the boat. But you think about that. So think about Rick Nielsen from Cheap Trick. I mean, how many guitars does he have that you could just put a picture of it up and you go, that's that.
The five neck probably.
But theirs look like, but they're unique to that band,
right?
Not necessarily unique guitars. Does that make sense? I mean,
well, most of his are custom made. I'd say the only thing that's really off the shelf that you would associate with him are the Explorers that he's painted checkerboard. He's known to play the older Explorers. You don't see him ever play a Strat. You never see him play. I think he's played a Les Paul maybe here or there, but his are mainly ones that he's built or had built. Unique shapes and stuff like that, or the Explorers. I know Explorer's been one that you always see him play at some point. And then he change. He's one of the people. He'll change the guitar. Every song or every other song, he's out playing something different, because that's kind of his shtick. It's just the way he's been.
Yeah, it's kind of part of the show.
Exactly.
As much as it is.
Instead of a costume change, he's changing guitars at that point.
Yeah. But they're pretty cool.
Oh, exactly. Another one that's really iconic that I brought up, and it's not rock, but it's Willie Nelson's guitar, Trigger.
Yep.
That guitar it's a Martin. He's since 1969 he's played only one guitar, and that's been Trigger. It's a Martin N20, and that was the model number of that Martin. He has actually, his house caught fire one time, and this is from what I've read, this is a true story. But when his house caught fire, he ran back into the house and he grabbed two things. He grabbed Trigger and a pound of weed. It was. I swear. That's the story. I've looked up 3 or 4 different outlets, and that was the story. He picked up Trigger and a pound of weed and ran out back out of the house.
That's pretty funny.
That guitar, now, if you think about it, if you took the guitar and you ground it up and smoked it, you'd probably get high, because it's probably been around weed so long.
Just lick on it, you get a contact buzz.
But I mean,
that guitar will end up in the Smithsonian or something.
There again,
or it should.
If it doesn't and it goes to auction, it'll be one of those ones that, I mean, it's worn. I mean, if you look at pictures on the internet, I mean, it's such a ginormous hole, underneath, where he's just, it's between sweating and playing and just, wearing it out. But he's played one guitar for, ever.
Well, he's been playing that guitar for, good Lord,
69.
60-something years.
Yep. Yeah. It's been a long one. So anyway, that's what I was getting to. And there's a lot of guitars like that. I mean, if you look at, Alex Lifeson from Rush, he plays Les Pauls now, and they do have a Alex Lifeson model that you can buy. It's about $5,000. It's freaking super expensive, and I don't know what makes it that expensive. But the one I always think about is that white 335 that he played in the first few tours. I mean, and he actually played that in concert toward the end when they did like Xanadu and 2112. He'll bring that guitar back out. It's just this big white, semi-hollow guitar, and that's the one that I always associate him with. Same way with Ted Nugent. He's got that 62 Gibson Birdland. If you like on the cover of Double Live Gonzo, it's that semi-hollow body. That's why he gets that sound where he gets up there and gets that feedback going.
That sounded kind of ghostly.
It's got ghostly, but it's got that single cutaway. And as I was looking through on the internet, they show close-up pictures to it, and it's almost the fact like Willie Nelson. It's got, I mean, so much wear. There are some holes in it. There is just where he sweated, all over it. It's just the finish is gone on it. and it's worn. It's just completely worn out. But it's cool. I mean, it's one of the ones, and he doesn't play it. He plays more or less Pauls nowadays. I've seen, but he still does pull that guitar out, at times. And like I said, there's just a million of those. The other cool one I thought, and I was found out information about was B.B. King's Lucille. There's not one Lucille though. Every guitar he owned, he called it Lucille. So it wasn't basically he had this one guitar. Most of them were those black ES335s, Gibson semi-hollows. Excuse me. But he didn't just have one Lucille and wear that kind of shit like that. It just every guitar he played was named Lucille. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And like you got Hendrix's white guitar. And that's in Seattle, I believe. It's in a museum in Seattle, Washington, I believe. That he played at Woodstock, the white one. And
not the one he set on fire.
No. That was at Monterey, wasn't it?
I don't know.
Or the Isle of Wight, or whichever one that was.
They were talking about that. That was on that show too. That was on that Soundbreaking show too. They showed that him there because they had the last episode was about guitars.
Right.
And when they, started hooking up electric guitars and stuff like that, and how it changed the recording and stuff like that, it's pretty cool.
Because the white Hendrix Stratocaster, it's behind glass and it's sealed. I guess it's hermetically sealed because they actually took it back out here. I think it's been 10, 15 years ago. They took it out, took it apart, measured every radius, every piece on that, and then Fender went back and made copies of that guitar. They made X amount. They sell them for like $10,000 a piece. Kind of bullshit. But check the windings on the pickups and made it exactly like the original. Hold on a second, I got it. I had a cough. And the other big one was for me was Eddie Van Halen's Frankenstein guitar. That one there was another one that was about 5 or 6 years ago was taken apart by a company, measured exactly. They even down to the cigarette burn marks on the headstock where he put his cigarettes in there. And there's a quarter that he had jammed down in there to hold the one piece of it. It was a 1974 quarter. They found the exact, found 1974 quarters. So the hardest piece was he had some reflectors that he had bought at a truck stop somewhere and stuck them on the back of these things. They said it was a hell to find those things. They had to find the exact make and model of these things, but these guitars were made exactly. And then of course, they're $8,000 a piece for a beat up looking guitar.
Yeah.
They call it.
It's funny that you brought up Eddie Van Halen because I was thinking that there are some iconic basses out there too. And
exactly.
Michael Anthony's Jack Daniels bass is the first one that popped into my head when I started thinking about basses, just like 10 minutes ago.
Right.
There's my research.
There you go. Well, that, and if you think of, to me, Geddy's been playing a Fender Precision or jazz bass, I guess, for years. But to me, Geddy Lee, it's a Rickenbacker. The 4001. He played out those for years and years and years. I don't know if there was a specific one or if he had, named it or anything. But that was.
He called it Ricky.
Yeah, there was a bunch of. There's a lot of names. It's funny. The one that Eric Clapton had, that black Stratocaster that he played for many years. And of course, it was named Blackie, of course. And that guitar actually went up for auction in 2009 and brought $957,000 for that guitar.
That was ridiculous.
That is
crazy.
Ridiculous. It was all for charity. Excuse me. I blew leaves and ground up leaves.
We all live in Allergy Alley here, so we're all.
Oh my God, it's terrible right now. It's that is what 60 degrees 3 days ago. Now it's we're getting 30, 40 degrees.
That doesn't help us. All right, so I come up with, in my quest to look for guitarists.
Yeah.
I looked at some female guitarists that I thought were really pretty cool.
Cool.
Had some, played on. So, I'm going to get this wrong, but Orathani Panagaris.
Oranthi.
Yeah, I don't know how you say
Orianthi.
Orianthi. There.
Yeah.
I always mispronounce that. Yeah.
Panagaris, is that right?
He's a hell of a guitar player.
All I know her by is Orianthi.
Yeah. Hot chick.
Yeah. and just wicked. I mean,
Yeah.
great player. Jennifer Batten, she's another one that has played on a bunch of stuff that's really good.
Orianthi, not to change, but Orianthi plays Paul Reed Smith and has her own model also too. So.
Oh, really?
Just to get it back to that subject, yeah, it's Paul Reed Smith, and it has an Oriental, or however you say it, model. So there you go.
And then there's Jennifer Batten, and then there's Nita Strauss that plays for Alice
so
Cooper.
Good.
Wow,
she's good,
impressive.
She's very good, very good. I like her a lot. I think she adds on. Well, I mean, and Cooper there again, he's had both of those women playing in his band, and I think that adds to his band. I really do. I think it's kind of cool how they have them integrated into the band like that. Awesome.
And now, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Orianthi played for Michael Jackson.
Yeah, she was rehearsing on that tour when he passed.
Yeah, exactly.
And when we were in Vegas, we went to see the Michael Jackson one show, which is the Cirque du Soleil show. Oh, yeah. And I think she was playing. She was the guitarist. She was the featured player.
She may have been.
And she was shredding it. I mean, it was. I'm almost positive it was her.
There was
long blonde hair. Oh my gosh, it was incredible.
Yeah, there was a documentary about that where they showed them rehearsing over at London for that first show. They had all this stage built up, and they were going through. I mean, and they showed her learning these songs and adding stuff, and right before he passed away. What kind of downer would that be, Ben? You'd be all psyched up thinking, man, I'm going to go on this big world tour. It's never going to, and poof.
And make a buttload of money. I'm sure she was going to make
oh, yeah. Now she's running around with Richie Sambora. Getting hosed.
Anyway. I think Richie will be running around with John before much longer.
He needs to be. I think so.
All right, that's kind of the people that I had come up with. I mean, other than because I looked at it differently, but it's definitely a fan of Ace Frehley, and definitely not in his guitar playing and that Les Paul, right? So he's been a Les Paul. I mean, he's had his own version, Les Paul version. So in the same way with Jimmy Page, he's a Les Paul guy. There's nothing special about him. There, he has I know there was a 1 and 2, and that's it. He plays these 2 Sunburst. But most guitar players have a guitar that you associate with. That's kind of what I was getting to be. It's like with Paul Stanley. It's the go-to, right?
I always think of that crackled
Iceman.
That's I always wanted to have one of those. Oh, I might be showing you one of those here in a couple of weeks. So we'll see.
Actually, I know that Noah actually has played one of those. So.
I'll have to
Chicago.
One of mine.
Actually, I think that for me, it's that George Lynch is another guitar player that when you see George Lynch, you kind of know a George Lynch guitar. They're very
or a Jackson. I think is what he played.
Yeah, and they've all got some kind of funky.
I'll be right back. I'll show you something.
Funky thing on the guitar. I mean, they're always the artwork on them. And I think that's the cool part is when they can take the guitars and do some really neat artwork. That's the thing I find interesting.
Now, getting back to that Charvels and stuff like that, Charvel was a big, in the hair metal age.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And they were and actually like the Frankenstein guitar was pieces and parts that Eddie Van Halen dug out of the dumpster there in Van Nuys at their factory. He'd pick up seconds of the body and the necks, and he basically, put this thing together. I've actually got a Charvel number 1 Model 1 that is basically a one pickup, 1 volume knob, and out. That's all it is. And I got this actually it had a Lotus neck on it. It was a piece of shit neck. This was originally black, and I took it to a friend of mine, and I wanted it. I always liked the old Hemi, Plymouth green. So this is actually paint for a car. I mean, he had it. I forgot how many coats he's put on this thing. And so at some point I'm going to buy another neck, and I've got all the parts and pieces down in the garage in a Tupperware bowl with a lid on it. But at some point this guitar will be put back together. So it'll be a Charvel will live again. So it'll be my Frankenstein, I guess, at some point.
That sounds like a good title for a song.
Frankenstein.
Be My Frankenstein.
Oh yeah.
Let's feed my Frankenstein.
Oh, it is Feed My Frankenstein.
Billy's going.
I was trying to make a funny little segue there, but
I know.
And I had to be a dick and ruin it.
No. It was fine.
Well, you know, if I wasn't the dick, someone else would be. So
I'm thinking,
doesn't bother me at all. Doesn't bother me at all. All right, so is that all we got?
I don't know.
That's pretty. We could go on and on. I mean,
Oh, there's a ton of them, and like I said, and there's guitar players out there that you like with Neil Sean. I don't know if I can associate a guitar with him because he's over the years he's changed, and that's what I was trying to get to with people who, Gilmore was one of those ones. Matter of fact, he had a Stratocaster that Fender came out and made the Gilmore model. There's a little different things. He had wanted a shorter tremolo bar. He wanted the controls a little different. There are certain pickups or put in there, certain wirings and stuff like that. And there's a million ways to do shit like that. And just because you buy one of these guitars doesn't make you sound like them. I've got a Dave Grohl guitar.
What?
I've got a Stanley guitar. I've got a Satchel guitar. I've got another Foo Fighters guitar that I'll show at some point. I've got a bass that's actually by somebody we talked about tonight that is their model. And I don't sound anything like any of those guys. It all sounds like me. So that's just the way it is. But
so just because you use their model guitar and you dress like them
doesn't help.
And you look like them.
It doesn't help.
And you wear the same things
so far
they wear.
as to dial their settings in, it doesn't help.
It doesn't matter.
But if you play one of their songs, you can tell it's their song.
Right.
That's true.
Yeah, I've been, it's like with me and amps, I've chased sound for tones forever. 5150 was the amp that I finally, I've had Marshalls, I've had Mesas, I've had Crate, I've had Fenders, I've had every amp you could do. And the 5150 was the one that I liked the best. And I've got one of the first, it's actually the block letter. It's the second year that they came out, still have the RCA tubes in it. I've had it modified. I had it biased and set and turned up a little bit, so it's a little hotter than normal. And I've played, that was my amp for many, many years. And then recently when Eddie Van Halen came out through Fender, he's got the EVH line. I bought that one because it's 3 channels. And since then, I don't think I've plugged the 5150 in since then. At some point I keep threatening, I'm going to bring it out one of these days. I'm going to play it. So I'm actually getting ready to liquidate. I'm going to get rid of that little Marshall amp down there, and I'm going to get rid of the Mesa because they're just sitting there collecting dust. I don't need them, and
I can never get down there. I need to bring Noah over there so he can.
Oh, please do. And he can.
He'd have a blast.
Hey, do you have a foot switch for that Marshall?
Man, I've told that story now about 50 times. That's funny as shit, dude. I swear to God, this room has been torn apart 18 times looking for that damn thing.
I've called
everybody that I could ever think of that I would have loaned it to. Because in the back of my mind, I go, man, I know I loaned it out to somebody, but who it was. And then, so anyway, to fill everybody in, I traded TVs the other day or changed all my TVs around. I put a TV, that's why I got a little 20-inch. So I was like, I needed to get rid of. So, I'm texting with these two yahoos, and I said, man, look at the new TV. And I said, man, I got a 20-inch I need to get rid of. And Alan goes, hey, man, I'll give you a Marshall Stomp Box pedal for it. I said, man, I really need one. I said, I lost mine. And he's like, dude, it's yours. I got it in the mix. Tomorrow. I'm like, oh, you got to be shitting me, dude. I said, it was like the Scooby-Doo mystery had been solved. We pulled the mask off the old man Jenkins. I was like, oh, my God. And I was like, Kelly, you ain't going to believe this shit.
I laughed about that for 2 days. Oh, it was so funny.
Oh, it bugged me. I mean, to the point where it's like, man, I know it's here somewhere. Maybe I just didn't look good enough, So I was going inch by inch through this place, picking up shit. But the room got cleaned. That was one good thing about it.
There you go.
Yeah. And on that note, I think that we're probably done with this episode. So
this will be going out on Thanksgiving, right?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
So make sure you go to agesofrock.com and check out all of our social media stuff. Give us some likes, give us some tweets and retweets and shares and all that fun stuff. And we will see you next time. Peace out.
Happy Thanksgiving, people.
Yes, happy Thanksgiving.
Hey, after your meal, just sit down and listen to us. That'd be cool.
If the tryptophan hasn't knocked you out.
Exactly.
Peace out. Thanks for listening to the Ages of Rock podcast. If you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, and most importantly, tell all your friends. Remember, you're never too old to rock. Until the next episode, peace out, folks.